Councilmember Valenzuela, I have you first on the speakers list. Well, Madam City Attorney, we continue to have disruption under Council Rules 5. We're adjourning the meeting.
Well, that was the Sacramento City Council meeting last night. It ended during public comment over the purchase of an armored police vehicle, also known as the Rook. And that's this green vehicle that you see right here. The city of Sacramento says that it resembles a mini tractor or bulldozer, kind of like what you see right here. Obviously, there are some differences, which we'll get into right now. The Rook can turn into a battering ram, a grapple claw, and even a huge shield. The city says that police will use it for critical incidences to protect officers. It'll cost police more than $400,000. They say it will not be used for day-to-day operations, and they make it clear that is not a tank. The purchase of armored equipment has been a heated debate, though, for some time now, especially since the city council approved the purchase just last week. So we brought the question to ABC 10 viewers on social media today. Do you think this is a tool that a local police department needs? One viewer wrote in, well, if that's what it costs to make it armored plated and bulletproof to keep those handling hot zone situations so they can neutralize the situation at hand, then it works for me. Another viewer wrote in and said, in part, the police need to be demilitarized. Also, the police are constantly trying to drive outside of their lane and act like firefighters and fire rescue. If we simply turn them back into police, we can save a lot of money and lives. And that brings us to tonight's main point. The question still stands. Why do police need something like this? As the debate over the Rook grows, Roxanne Elias is hearing from supporters and from those who say that the Rook doesn't belong here.
Sacramento City Council is moving forward, approving hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund this armored vehicle for the Sacramento Police Department.
I want to thank all the many members of the council who supported some of the grant funds being used to purchase the Rook piece of equipment for the police department. I've come from the north area where I've had the experience years ago having a gun in my face. I'm very much aware that violent crime is real.
This Sacramento resident told City Council that she's grateful for the addition, but there are others like the Sacramento Regional Coalition to End Homelessness, Bob Erlingbush, who believes the community is already over-militarized.
It's traumatizing, especially for communities of color that already are traumatized given everything that's happened in this country over the last year or two.
City officials say the Rook comes with no purchase cost to the city. The Rook is covered by a federal grant through the Urban Area Security Initiative program run by the Department of Homeland Security.
The UOSI program is a component of the Federal Homeland Security Grant Program, which aims to help strengthen the nation's communities against potential terrorist attacks, and supports the goal to strengthen national preparedness and resilience and readying the nation for catastrophic disasters.
And police say the Department of Homeland Security has identified Sacramento as one of the high-density urban areas most at risk for terrorism. But the question many have is, how will this piece of equipment actually be used?
It's not used for routine operation, and it will only be used in the most dangerous of situations. It's not used for things like protests or camp cleanups. We believe that the Rook can help us to provide enhanced protection for our officers and the public while helping us safely navigate really high-risk events that the police department is charged with resolving in our community.
Chief Kathy Lester says its unique capabilities can't be accomplished with the equipment they have now. Examples include the ability to move in very tight places, remove dangerous obstacles, and access second stories of buildings and homes. Erlingbush says he's all for keeping officers safe, but he believes the money could have been used for something else.
Specifically, with $500,000, you could hire more outreach workers to homeless encampments, provide more services, domestic violence counseling, or mental health treatment, substance use treatment, etc.
Roxanne, you've been trying to talk to city officials about this purchase all day. And I was going to ask you, what have you heard? But I guess the better question is, what have you not heard, or who have you not heard from?
Yes, Alex. Today alone, I reached out to about
5 city council members and officials, asking them where exactly this money could have gone to something else, but they were either not available or they didn't respond. I also asked Sacramento police if they could answer a few questions that we had. I'm still waiting to hear back from them, but the person that we did hear from is council member Katie Maple, who had an opinion piece in the Sacramento Bee. And if you take a look at your screen, this is what she had to say. She wrote, in part, I wish this violence didn't happen at all, and I firmly believe we need to invest in mental health care and interventions to prevent it from occurring in the first place. But while we still live in a world where this violence does occur, we must prepare for it. Councilmember Maple also said that within hours of council's vote, people sent messages to her and her family, posting her address online, threatening to burn down her house and harassing her staff. She's calling for people to come together for a town hall meeting. That's going to be on February 28th. She wants people from District 5 residents to come out and voice their opinion.
All right, Roxanne, thank you. And of course, as soon as we get those answers, we'll update you here on air. All right, a law was passed in California just last year to limit police departments from using military-grade equipment. And the bill was introduced in 2021 by State Assembly member David Chu. He says it was born from police using force against civilians during protests following the death of George Floyd. In an interview with ABC 10, he listed some of the equipment he says falls under military grade. Things like manned and unmanned aircraft, armored and tactical vehicles, bayonets, long knives, and then guns or bullets bigger than 50 calibers, explosives, and riot gear. And if a department already had tools like this when the bill passed, they needed to ask a regulatory body for permission to keep using them. Same is true for any new equipment that they wanted to buy too. All right, California is no stranger to disaster. After the break, we look at the one that the state narrowly avoided. Six years ago, disaster almost struck in Northern California. The Oroville Dam, about 90 minutes north of Sacramento, is the tallest in the United States. And when a section of it began to erode, evacuations were ordered. Heavy rainfall damaged Oroville Dam's main and emergency spillways and flooded the Feather River and communities just downstream. And a spillway acts like the overflow hole near the top of your sink and takes pressure off of the dam. Tonight, we're taking a look back at what could have been and hearing from some of the 200,000 people that were rushed from their homes.
I'm in Oroville, and right behind me is the main spillway. You can see that the water gushing down. That's 100,000 cubic feet per second.
I'm on my way back to Oroville. I have just been informed there is an emergency evacuation to get to high ground.
I'm just kind of in limbo, and I mean, this is my hometown. It's, you know, kind of almost devastating to think that something that we've always known and loved and been proud of is kind of being destroyed and causing havoc on my town.
When we heard the notification come across that evacuations were ordered, it was an immediate heart stop.
We built this ourselves here. We put the trailer here, we put the porch here. I mean, things we worked or, you know, tears, blood, and sweat type of deal into it. I mean, imagine all that, losing it.
You work so much, you just feel like somebody just took it away from you.
In February of that year, we had a series of storms coming into the lake when we found the damage in the spillway. Unfortunately, it was damage that was too large to repair and really resulted in a failure of this spillway.
We've made significant progress, but that progress isn't happening at a pace and scale that we know is needed. And with climate change, winning slowly is losing.
The repairs for the Oroville Dam cost more than $1 billion. So far, the repaired spillway has held up just fine. And we've done a lot of reporting on the Oroville crisis and the impacts a major flood could have had downstream. You can catch our mega flood special on our ABC 10 Plus app tonight. It airs at 7 right after To the Point, so you can check it out. Missing and murdered Indigenous people. That's the epidemic where far too many Native Americans disappear or get killed, and their cases go underreported and unsolved. Now there's a new push for state lawmakers to do something about it. Becca Habegger tells us tonight how tribal leaders and their allies are raising awareness.
We believe you. We support you.
Indigenous people and allies from all over the state gathered outside the Capitol Tuesday to mark California's first ever Missing and Murdered Indigenous People Day of Action, led by the Yurok tribe.
This is a big step forward in the state of California as far as telling the story about missing and murdered Indigenous women, Indigenous persons that has been happening in Indian country for many years when I was growing up. But now it's risen to the level of getting awareness and gaining allies.
Assemblymember James Ramos is chair of the California Native American Legislative Caucus. He's also the first California Native American elected to the state assembly and has been working to pass solutions to the Missing and Murdered Indigenous People, or MMIP, crisis, including a feather alert system that was signed into law last year.
That when someone goes missing from a federal Indian reservation, tribal community in the state of California, that feather alert can be triggered throughout the state of California, working with the CHP and local authorities.
This legislative session, Ramos is working to pass 2 more bills aimed at the MMIP crisis. One, AB 44, would grant tribal law enforcement and courts access to the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, or CLETS.
Right now, people are coming onto federal Indian reservations, and we don't know the severity of who these people are coming on. If we knew that, we could curb some of these violent acts against women and persons on reservations.
Today, as we honor our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives.
Speakers at Tuesday's historic event included Morningstar Galley, project director with Restoring Justice for Indigenous People.
There is a visibility and conversations that are happening in this moment that have not happened previously. We are all needed in this fight for justice.
California tribal leaders are calling for the state to invest $200 million into tribally proposed solutions and programs that are all aimed at reducing violence against Native people. And we do have more information on abc10.com/to-the-point. All right, here are some other stories that people are talking about today. Assemblyman Isaac Bryan is proposing a constitutional amendment that would let people cast ballots while in state prison. And Bryan says a prisoner's right to vote helps form a connection to their community when they're released. And to be clear, this is for people actively behind bars. People with felonies in California already get their rights restored after being released from prison. New information coming out of Tennessee. State records show that one of the Memphis police officers charged in connection with Tyree Nichols' death took a picture of Nichols after he was beaten and restrained, and then texted it to multiple people. This violates city police regulations regarding confidential information, and the investigation, it is still ongoing, with 7 additional officers potentially facing discipline for their involvement. And people in Yuba City have been searching for Marion Wilkinson today. She is a beloved homeless advocate that was last seen walking in Marysville. So if you do have any information, take a look at her picture. You can call the Yuba City Police Department. Black History Month is celebrated every year in February, and it's all about recognizing Black people, history, and culture, and confronting the many injustices that Black communities still face to this day. Our race and culture reporter Candace Redd spoke with an expert at Sacramento State to learn how Black History Month began.
To degenerate into physical violence.
It is a reflection of human history.
In the U.S., Black History Month is celebrated every year in February.
Black History Month is an opportunity to think about the contributions that African Americans and people of African descent have contributed to not only America, but modern world.
The roots of Black History Month can be traced back to September 9th, 1915. On that date, historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History.
It is an institution that exists today that houses and publishes scholarly work that looks at the research and the history of Black people.
Today, the organization is called the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, or ASALH. The mission remains the same. It's to promote, research, preserve, interpret, and disseminate information about Black life, history, and culture to the global community.
Without their stories, you wouldn't even have the concept of America.
Woodson, who's also known as the father of Black history, worked with ASALH members to establish Negro History Week. It's now referred to as Black History Week. Asala held the first celebration during the second week of February in 1926.
It was particularly placed in the month of February because of the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass.
President Lincoln was born February 12, 1809, but since Douglass was born into slavery, the date of his birth was not recorded. It's estimated that the great abolitionist was born February 14, 1818.
Unfortunately, there are spaces within our nation that would like to forget these things. And as we know, when you don't acknowledge, recognize, and remember a trauma, you're bound to repeat that trauma.
During Black History Week, Black teachers in segregated public schools taught Black students about the achievements of their ancestors. Asala provided study materials like lessons and posters of important dates and people. The elementary teachings came with plays, pageants, reciting speeches, essay contests, concerts, and other events.
It was important for them to establish some kind of curriculum that would give identity and agency to Black people.
Over time, Black History Week gained enormous popularity across the country. By the mid-1960s, college students, along with Black civic organizations, began pushing to extend Black History Week into a month-long celebration.
On strike, shut it down! On strike, shut it down!
The push came with campus protests demanding Black studies departments too.
Black people in the 60s were coming off the heels of the Civil Rights Movement, and college students wanted to see self-representation on campuses. This is how you get the development of the Ethnic Studies Department in San Francisco State and the Black Studies Department all across the nation.
Asala began seeking recognition from the federal government to mark February as a time to recognize Black people's contributions to the U.S.
It's a reflection of an aspect of contributions to civilizations that is seldom told, particularly in K-12 settings. And at times when the story is told, it's from a skewed and very subjective perspective.
President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month for the first time in February 1976. Since then, every U.S. president has designated February as Black History Month.
This month is a chance to celebrate the central role that African Americans have played in every aspect of American life.
I think it's important to recognize the challenges that we have as Black people when you talk about equity, when you talk about opportunities in education, opportunities across the board.
10 years later, in 1986, Congress designated February as National Black History Month, making it a time of acknowledgement, reflection, and inspiration for all.
America wants to do better for itself, and at times we just don't know how. And I think Black History Month is the opportunity to learn how to do that, learn how to be better.
And each year, ASALH creates a Black History Month theme that's endorsed by the President of the United States. And this year's theme is Black Resistance. The organization says that the theme is meant to highlight how African Americans have resisted historic and ongoing oppression in all forms. We'll be right back after this break. This shopping plaza ain't big enough for the two of us. That's the message from a rehab center in South Sacramento. Diamond House Detox does not want a new marijuana dispensary to set up shop nearby. The dispensary has been going through the permitting process to open in the same plaza since before Diamond House opened. And Diamond House says that it would be a problem for their patients, but that the people behind the dispensary say their business has equal value.
There is access to a medicine that a community is looking to me at this time to get in a position to be able to feel safe to come and get it from.
Diamond House says they have no issues with the type of business or the business owner. This is a land issue, and they want the city council to come together to find another location. And this issue will be heard at city council on February 21st, if you'd like to listen in. All right, we have covered a lot of ground tonight. So if you have any thoughts about any of the stories that we brought you, please reach out. We would love to hear from you. I, on the other hand, I'm going to go take a drink of water, call it a night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, it's Alex. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really love hearing from everyone, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Reach out to me on Facebook at AlexBellTV, or you can email me at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send me a text message at 916-321-3310.